Every 12 months in Australia, when you own a motorcycle or a motor vehicle, you need to get a safety check in order to register the vehicle to use it on the roads. A few weeks ago, it was that time again. So my motorcycle needed to get registered. I figured I'd go to my favorite local motorcycle mechanic and get them to sort it out and say, hey guys, can you look after this for me? Get me a pink slip. Before we get to that, a bit of a backstory. These guys, I use them for most of my stuff, and about 6 months ago, I took the bike for a service, dropped the fluids, changed the filters, fix up the chain, just check it over. And I complained to them that the rear brake was a little bit crunchy, in that when I'd put the back brake on, it'd make grindy noises like there was a rock in it or something. And in response, like, yeah, sure, your rear plates, your rear pads look fine. It shouldn't be a problem. And I insisted that, hey, there's something going on. Can you just take the calipers apart, clean the pads, and check it out for me? Fair enough. They said sure. Now, when it was done, they changed the fluids, filters, did what they needed to do, and I got the bike back. And it was great. For like a week or two, the noise was gone. It was great. But after that, it started coming back. When you put on the back brake, it started giving this grindy, scratchy noise. And I'm like, dodgy pads. Fast forward to a few weeks ago when I went to get a pink slip, a safety check for the motorcycle. And I took it in, they had a look at it, they gave it the once over, and they found out that it was the rear wheel bearing was loose. There was a bit of wobble, a bit of play in it. And I figured, I don't know, I haven't got anything on this afternoon, and yeah, sure, can you fix it for me? But at the same time, I said, while you're there, while you've got the rear wheel off, can you change the back brake pads? Because they're still squeaky, they're still scratchy. And they're like, yeah, there's plenty of meat on it. Why would we do that? I'm like, just humor me. So I'm sitting there in the workshop watching them get it done, which is always a treat. And they pull off the rear wheel and the rear axle, and it's just covered in rust. There's all this corrosion on the back wheel. And it occurred to me, maybe the grinding, crunching I was hearing was the failure of the wheel bearing. Like when you put the rear brake on and apply torque to the wheel, it grinds against the bearing housing because it's full of rust. And of course, with that realization, I shared my concerns with the mechanic, and he's like, oh yeah, you could be right. Do you still want to change the pads? Why not? I'm committed, let's do it. So he changed the pads, put the bike back together, and the noise is gone. Now, that's not very scientific, because was it the bearing or the pads? No idea. But I'm convinced it was the bearing. Now, what's the point of this story? What does it matter? It illustrates a very important principle in any professional pursuit. Let's say you're a plumber or an electrician or a software engineer or a vehicle mechanic. And that principle is, don't give the customer what they ask for, give them what they want. That is, the customer will come and they will come with their perceived solution. In that, I want X, and you do X, and that's not what they wanted, but that's what they're asking for, because they don't understand the domain. With the motorcycle, I was the customer, and in my smooth brain, I'm like, oh, when the brakes go on, it goes crunchy, it must be the brake pads. I was wrong. But the mechanic just did what I asked. I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll change your pads. Doesn't make sense, but we'll do it. Rather than thinking, grinding when the brakes are on, and then doing a few checks, a few diagnostics, and going, what else would cause grinding? Rather than assuming I know what the hell I'm talking about. with software engineering, it's really common that a client or a stakeholder will come to you asking for a particular feature or some software built for a purpose. And rather than going, I need to solve the problem. So let's say the customer wants to attract more people to the website. And they say, hey, I want to attract more people to the website. We should put social media buttons on. Yes, I can do that, but maybe the social media buttons aren't going to achieve the desired result. Maybe it's content or compatibility or a search engine issue, or even just as simple as poor marketing. You're not getting your ads in front of the right people. It's a contrived example, but the motorcycle story reminded me that if the mechanics stopped and went, hey, what is this guy actually wants non-crunchy back brake, let's fix that, instead of just doing the job that they were asked. And it makes a difference. It separates the good professionals from the slightly dodgy professionals. Now, don't get me wrong, I like these guys. They're good mechanics, but yeah, it just reminded me of that.